What's the difference between illustration and concept art? I think a lot of people use these things interchangeably. I know this is kind of a harsh transition, but I do think this is an important thing as we're talking to you about 2D art. I think a lot of people use these interchangeably. I know growing up, I would look at what were probably actually illustrations and be like, I like video game concept art. That's me as like a 10-year-old, I guess. So
very flattering. Very flattering.
Very flattering. How do you see the difference between these two things? Or not even how. I mean, there is a difference, right? Like there's a clear difference between an illustration and concept art.
Yeah, well, you can be forgiven for being kind of confused about the distinction there, because the industry really doesn't do itself any favors in the way they communicate this kind of stuff. So when you go and check out the art of book for most video games, what you're actually getting, they're filling up this product. Ultimately what it is kind of really beautiful key shots that were a lot of time were spent on to make them look beautiful. And that is definitely not the point of concept art. Definitely the point of illustration. So ultimately what I'm getting at is the difference is in the purpose for the piece. So what illustration is supposed to do is portray really beautifully and in, often great detail, a scenario, a scene, a character, whatever it is, for the purpose of some player-facing piece of artwork. But concept art is more of an internal use application for artists. So the one of the main distinctions you could use between them is, how do I get a visual representation of what up to this point in development has been an amorphous idea, so that we can then kind of start getting an idea of what it's going to look like in game. And a concept artist's job is to take a prompt from like a game designer or whatever and try to iterate on potential directions that idea could go in for visual implementation. So one of the key features is low cost. So you don't want to spend a lot of time making a thing beautiful when the main point of it is to just get a sense of what it could look like. And then there can be various stages, that get closer and closer to what might look like an illustration. But then the things that they publish in these art of books are just the last part where, it might still be the work of a concept artist. So they can technically, say like, no, this is concept art. But, it's like the last iteration that will then get sent to, a 3D modeler or something to use as like a really one-to-one example of what to make in game. But that's the tip of the iceberg. Everything else below the water is really rough, sketchy stuff that you really wouldn't want to show anyone who wasn't hiring for a concept artist. That's mainly just used to quickly flesh out ideas and get input as you're going into, refining what direction the idea should go into.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a lot of it, honestly, is just working on silhouettes and shapes and being like, which ones of these do I like?
Exactly. Yeah, thumbnail sketches.
That's actually my favorite part of the art process is, what shape do I like for some weird, unintuitive reason? My body's just like, I like this one.
Exactly. And, the same way that you can like intellectualize about the origins of orcs and goblins and, the kind of conversation we were having at the start about fantasy, which is, something kind of silly. You can definitely get intellectual about, shapes and stuff. Why does a triangle feel angry and a square feel strong? There's, psychological reasons why we perceive them this way. And those fundamental perceptions definitely play into the concept artist's toolbox.
Do you know of any actual talking about how sort of the industry obfuscates the real nature of concept art, sort of for the sake of, customer facing collectibles and elements like those are making of and art of books?
Mm-hmm.
Are there good resources that people can utilize and like find real concept art presented without sort of artifice, or
Absolutely.
Or is that the sort of thing that just like on people's art station or in someone's online portfolio?
Well, this is going to be like the key piece of information for someone who's trying to break into the industry and is confused about this kind of thing. The industry is saturated with portfolios of people trying to land their first job as a concept artist who don't realize this point. They're submitting illustration portfolios to someone hiring for a concept artist who takes one look and goes, nah. I'll get to the answer to your question in a second, but what a art director is really looking for in a portfolio for concept art is the inner workings of how you're thinking about the problem. So almost like, when you're in school and your math teacher says, show your work. They don't just want the answer to the equation. They want to see how you got there, to understand that you understand how you got there. But that's exactly what the art director is looking for in your concept art portfolio. Is they want to see how your mind operates to get to that solution, so that they can extrapolate whether or not you'll be a good fit for that project. And it's unfortunate that amongst the sea of really great resources out there tends to be the winner takes all mentality sometimes. And Feng Zhu's YouTube channel, it's FCD, the Feng Zhu School of Design, is I think you can't beat better jumping off point to get into what concept art really is. I mean, hardly anyone understands the field and is able to articulate the principles behind it better than he is. And he runs an art school in Singapore, and just has an incredible resume and understanding and, like I said, ability to communicate these ideas. So I would just search FZD, concept art on YouTube, and unlock a free library of some of the most informative information you could see out there to get started on your journey, if that's what you're interested in.
Hell yeah.
How fortuitous that most of our viewers come from Singapore too. That's crazy. I'm also
oh wow,
that's not true. It's really interesting what you just meant, or what you were just talking about too, because it's very similar to. So I come from the 3D side. I don't remember if we've talked about this at length, Chris. I come from the 3D side, or at least that's foundationally where I started in games. I don't claim to be a savant, and it's very similar, at least in the animation process, to previs versus the final visualization, the full render that you see. And I think that, at least for me, makes it very clear what the purpose of concept art is versus the purpose of an illustration. You would have a better idea of this, right? How much time do you realistically spend on a good illustration?
Oh yeah, I'm a bad person to answer that, because I have a strange form of it's an impulse I've been fighting for years now, and I'm better now than I used to be, but I could get quite perfectionist on an illustration and really just go way over the hours that were needed for it, just because that was my inclination. But I mean, I'd say, depending on the project, of course, and styles can vary, and the amount of time needed to accomplish that art style. For a trading card type illustration, I would say 3 days from concept to final execution would be on like the shorter end, for like a full page illustration like you would find in a dungeon guide manual. A week worth of work is, I think those ranges are pretty fair for like a professional, and who's sticking to a regimented work schedule and everything like that. I say that because artists can often be somewhat degenerate, like just sitting at all hours in front of their tablet, just whiling away. But I'd say that's like a fair window of time for a professional. Whereas, yeah, concept art, I mean, you need to be able to pump out a ton of work every day, to be competitive.
Well, I mean, I've seen people in YouTube videos or in person just rip out a whole silhouette sheet in minutes. Because to your point, I mean, it's not pretty. I feel like half the time they're not even necessarily like shapes that match like a humanoid. Like it's a feeling, and then you can even like clean it up a little bit using like the negative space and erasing things to kind of adjust and whatnot. But yeah, it's just so much quicker. It's almost like the guidelines, you'll see on art, especially if you watch any person on YouTube, as they're just kind of making circles, and then suddenly it's like, oh, there's a thing there. Your brain snaps and it's like, oh, this is a person, or this is a squirrel. I don't know. A squirrel is what came into my mind, but yeah, I mean, as you're saying, that's a pretty massive time difference.
Well, I think also, the quality of, like what that person's experience level is, informs how quickly they can get to a solution, and also the level of concentration. I think that's one thing that's like really overlooked in this kind of work is, the amount. It's really cognitive work in the same way that, a coder might be. We're applying different skills here, but it really is, requires deep concentration and effort of visual reasoning to get to these things. So some people are able to tap into that more easily than others, and that can definitely change how quickly they're able to problem solve on the page.